Hello Battle Cats players, my name is Chance, welcome to my guide, and today we're going to be going over another one of the special cats. One of the special cats that may spell future problems for my channel, but I would not be a diligent guide maker if I didn't cover it. Today we're talking about Bondage Cat. Yeah, that's right, Bondage Cat. This cat is likely a good portion of the reason why this is a 13 plus game as far as age range is concerned. Bondage Cat is a special cat that can be purchased for about 150 cat food after completing Denmark and Empire of Cats Chapter 1. And Ponos really leans into this aesthetic. I'm gonna do my best to keep this video brief. Let's move on to his evolutions. He follows the exact same progression as all of the other special cats we've covered up until this point, and has the description: has extremely high stamina, will happily take a beating from anyone, and strong against red enemies. And then at level 10, he will evolve into Neo, or Bondage Cat Neo. Wants more pain, will happily take a beating from anyone, strong against red enemies. At this point, he'll be blindfolded, different restraints on him, ball gag, very heavily leaned into by Ponos. They've definitely done their research. And then at level 20, after completing the stage Bondage Awakens, he will transform into his true form of Ultimate Bondage Cat, offers himself up as a shield to achieve transcendent pleasure, ? Strong against red, may survive a lethal attack. We will talk about that in a little bit. And as far as how his form changes, he just gets buried. You can really only see his legs, basically. His head is nowhere to be seen. And as far as the Bondage Awakens stages go, the first stage, Bound to Evolve, Expert. Second stage, same name, Insane. 150 energy cost for each. You might not get them on the first stage, but you will get them on the second stage. And as far as days it's going to be made available, this is true for both the English version and the Japanese version, by the way. The 7th day of any month from 700 to 1400, so that's 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then the 8th day of any month from 1700 to 0000, so that's 5 p.m. till midnight. And he was made his first appearance on May 9th of 2015. Now they have a good grasp on his evolutions. Let's take a look at his overall performance and talk about some pros and cons here. First and foremost, Bondage Cat is considered to be a tanker and a melee unit. I cannot remember if we've talked about tankers yet. I know we've talked about meat shields for sure. In any case, I will go over them really quick. Tankers are units who have extremely high health points and durability. They're used for taking hits from enemies without being knocked back, typically on stages where meat shields fall short. They often have health boosting abilities against one or more traits, and many of them have great attack power. This is kind of true for Bondage Cat. And then, of course, as far as melee units go, it just means they deal with close and personal combat. The main thing that makes Bondage Cat an exceptional tanker only really takes place in his true form, so until then, who cares? In terms of pros, high health, once again in the true form, high attack rate, short cooldown. Under cons, single target, high cost, low movement speed. Bondage Cat is so slow. He is painfully slow. I think, unironically, that might be one of the things that holds him back the most. As a tanker, you always want to be taking the hits. That's it. It's in your job description. But if seemingly every other cat moves so much faster than you, they're going to be getting hit before you even make it to the line. So I don't know. I would like to see his movement speed increased. I get why it's slow. I get it's thematic. I get he's all tied up. But still, Ponos, it just makes him kind of a pain in the neck to use. In addition to that, he is strong against red enemies. Strong, of course, meaning that he deals 1.5 times damage and takes half damage from red enemies, which, is great. Fair enough. Immune to warp, we actually talked about in the last video, so I won't harp on it too much, but just prevents the unit from being warped, but this is only in its true form, of course, and 50% chance to survive a lethal strike in his true form, of course. This ability right here is what actually makes him an exceptional tanker. This is one of my favorite abilities in all of Battle Cats. I think it's great. It turns some units from complete garbage into perfectly viable almost immediately. The ability to guarantee a hit against some boss enemies especially is invaluable. The fact that Bondage Cat also has a short cooldown time makes this just chef's kiss. Now that you have a good grasp on his performance, let's watch some gameplay and talk about how to best use him. In the short term and in the early game, the answer to that question is just don't. Until you get him to his true form, there's virtually no reason to have him on your team. He's certainly against non-red enemies. I would make a mistake that he will just hold your team back. Between his just kind of mid stats and his incredibly slow movement speed, the odds of him making a meaningful contribution to your team, I would say, are 0 in the early game. Use Island Cat instead if you have access to it, which you should by this point. And even if not, like, I'm sure you have better units. I'm sure you have better units. Now, true form. All right, once he gets to that, it basically doubles his health. The warp immunity is, I don't know, I don't think it's that useful up along some stages, sure. I just don't think warping is that big of a deal for the majority of the game, but the chance to survive a lethal strike is really great. The only downside is by the time you get him, his stats are garbage. So the ability to survive a lethal strike is great, and if you're able to build a half decent stack of ultimate bondage cats, then it could hold the line pretty dang good. However, his stats, not great. The caveat to this is the talents he'll get access to. And we will talk about that in a little bit, because the talents tweak enough of him where he might actually become, under some circumstances at least, one of the best tanks in the game. But before we get into that, let's take a look at his cat combos. He only has 3, and all of them are kind of funny. All of them only require him in his base form, which is also kind of nice, I guess. It prevents you from heavily investing into him until you really need to. Although the cat combos themselves are kind of all okay. Anyways, let's start with behind closed doors. This is a cat cannon power up. Cat cannon's power is increased by 20%. It involves both Dom Cat and Bondage Cat. Surprise, surprise. And I think it's trash. I'm not a huge fan of the cat cannon attack power increases. I'm a much bigger fan of the cat cannon recharge times, if anything. I just don't think you should be relying on the cat cannon for raw DPS. It just makes no sense. Up next, we have Witch Trial. This, of course, involves Witch Cat and Bondage Cat. So another 2 cat combo. And this is a slow effect up. The slow duration is increased by 10%. I actually really like slow. There are a lot of units that inflict the slow status that I'm a pretty big fan of, if for no other reason than nostalgia purposes, but still it's a good status. So fair enough. This is fine if you happen to be using both of these units on your squad anyways. Why not? There's not really a downside to it. Of course, there are better cat combos up there, but depending on what you have access to, why not? The last one, we have Sacrifice. This involves Summoner Saduro, who unfortunately we won't be able to talk about for quite some time, and a Bondage Cat as well. This is a unit defense up. Cat's health increases by 10%. Funny enough, this could actually be a pretty viable cat combo, simply because Bondage Cat fully maxed out with some good talents invested into on a predominantly red stage would be one hell of a tanky unit. So this is one of the rare exceptions where I will say the unit defense up is pretty viable in this case. Yeah. And for a 2 cat combo, it's like, if you're using both of these units anyways, why not? Or if you have access to both of them anyways, why not? And in case you were curious, as far as costs go, his chapter 1 cost is 690 cents, 69. Nice, very funny. For chapter 2, it's 1,035 cents, and for chapter 3, it is 1,380 cents. Now let's take a look at some charts while I talk about some trivia regarding Bondage Cat. He only really has one bit of trivia. He is one of the only 2 purchasable special cats whose health is increased in true form, the other being Beefcake Cat. So to fill up the rest of this time, I'm just going to thank you guys again. Thank you for showing support to the channel. It makes the world of difference for me. It definitely makes pursuing these videos more worthwhile to know that I'm reaching people and helping people out. Of course, comment down beneath if you have anything you'd like to say, any questions you want answered, or anything you'd like me to amend to these videos or add to them. Just really great having all of you here. Really do appreciate it. Now let's move on to discussing Bondage Cat's talents. Firstly, he has access to freeze. This adds a 30% chance to freeze for about half a second, and then improves by like 0.2 seconds essentially per level, up to a total of 2 seconds. The total cost for this ends up being 165 NP. Up next, dodge chance adds a 40% to dodge attacks for about half a second. This improves by like 0.07 seconds per level, up to about a full second. The total cost for is 165 NP as well. Immune to slow is for 75 NP, and then the typical defense and attack buffs that will increase the health and attack power respectively of the unit by 8% per level, up to 80%, and both will cost a total of 125 NP. Now, as far as how to best approach these individual talents, the health up and the dodge attack talents are far and away the most important talents. I would say all of the others are kind of meaningless, or at the very least really niche. So if you're going to prioritize anything, prioritize the health up and the dodge chance. This, in combination with those already pretty good survivability, certainly up against red enemies, make him brutally hard to kill. If used properly, you should deal with no issues in relation to stopping red enemies moving forward. There's an argument to be made that maybe in most circumstances this isn't viable just because he is so damn slow. Roe Cat, who I'm looking forward to covering in a later video, is far and away a better alternative for like 99% of circumstances. But if you are struggling on a red stage and your line is just crumbling almost immediately, this is a perfectly viable cat to throw into your lineup and just trial and error. It should work though for the vast majority of stages, or vast majority of like red prominent stages, I should say. As far as like a rough talent order outside of that goes, it's hard to say. He's not really a unit that you're ever gonna want to have like attacking that much, so like the attack buff doesn't really matter. In terms of freeze, I mean, it'd be great if it happened, but there are better freeze units in the game. So it might be valuable if you can get it to proc, sure. And the immunity to slow, I just wouldn't even factor in. He's already so damn slow as it stands. It's just insult to injury, I guess. So I guess like the rough order would be prioritize the dodge attack and the defensive buff for sure. And then probably next freeze, and then attack buff, and then immune to slow. That's how I would do it. Let me know if you do it any differently down in the comment section beneath, of course. And that about wraps up this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Really do appreciate having all of you here. Feel free to let me know what your thoughts are, and let me know your questions are as well. We have a really good community for answering and asking questions, so feel free to go nuts. Thank you so much, and be sure to like and subscribe for Cat God's Blessing. Stay tuned for some interesting community post stuff. Like and subscribe so you're part of that as well, I guess. And yeah, have a great day, and I'll speak to you all next time. Bye bye for now.